welcome to our third session of P2P. We're going to be covering some VFX in Unity. So, big question here. What is VFX? So VFX stands for Visual FX. In games, you'll see visual effects. It's the process of creating special animations that are not an object or character. What it mainly does is to boost the player's interaction within the game world, and it makes it feel more realistic. You can do this by making realistic environments such as dust and light pass-throughs. There's some kind of character animations that you can also do. If like a character has a special power, there can be like a power-up aura, trails, weapon aura. There's also special effects such as if you have a portal or interactable objects, something you can select. So visual effects in games is not similar to film VFX. Why is that? Is because in games, we actually use real-time versus pre-rendered effects, which means it's actually going to be more computer intensive in terms of how it's running. And we also use a 3D camera space instead of a 2D camera space. So in films, you only see like a flat screen, and then you only see the explosions on a flat plane, right? But in visual effects in a game sense, you'll have to make sure that the camera space, you can rotate around it and see the effects through. And also just visual communication. That green means go maybe. There might be a light here that you can interact with. So things like that. In Unity, the main two ways to make visual effects is through the effect particle system. And there's also a package that you can download called the Visual Effects Graph. The second one we probably won't go over too in depth, so we'll focus on the particle system first. The particle system runs on CPU, and you can do it on any project type, which is really good. The visual effects graph uses GPU instead. It's more modular and node-based, and it only works on the 3D URP, so 3D Universal Render Pipeline, or the high-definition render pipeline only. So visual effects looks really awesome in the visual effects graph, but overall the particle system is used in Unity. So these are some things that we are going to cover today. So we're going to cover how to make dust, how to make rain, snow, fire, and smoke using the particle effect system. And if we have time, we'll go on to the visual effects graph. And let's get going. You will want to go to your projects, make a new project, and the template we want to use is either URP or HDRP, just in case we want to go into the visual effects graph later. I will use a URP and call my project VFX P2P. Woohoo, create project. In the Unity asset store, so you can search up this modular first-person demo. So that's the first one we're gonna do. If you have this downloaded, find a skybox, so any type of skybox. I personally really like this one, cartoon anime styled HDRI skybox pack. This one's nice because it has more of a 2D aspect to it, and you could use it in a 3D space. It looks really good. And then some type of asset where you can work on in it. So I really like this 3D blacksmith house. It's free through Goosely Games. If you have Unity up and running, you can go to your window package manager and find in your Unity, wherever, I think it's in my assets, the modular first-person controller and the blacksmith house. And I guess I'll use the fantasy skybox because it's here. Once everything is in here in your package manager, you can just click import and import. And same with whatever asset you wanted to use. If you would like, you can also download the visual effects graph right now. It'll just be in the Unity registry. You can look up visual effects graph, install that. You can also install any assets it asks for. In the visual effects graph, you can also import any additions, because we can look at this later. So we have all our assets imported. We have a skybox, we have our first-person controller, and one asset, which is awesome. So first what we're going to do is look at where the particle effects system is. So go to your hierarchy here. You will right-click, go to Effects, and you will click on Particle System. And wow, there's this really pretty guy over here. Cool. Okay, so in the particle system, basically you have your main particle system. This is the default that it comes in with. And in the particle system tab, there's a lot of parameters that you can actually change. So we will import in a plane first. So we will go to game object, 3D object, plane. Let that die for a second. Okay. And then you could size it up if you want to be. I also want to drag in my assets, so I will put in one of these skyboxes, like this one. Put in a skybox here, and then I will also go to my asset, drag it in. It looks like nothing, so I will put on the material for that. So for my asset, there's no base map right now, so I'm just gonna actually import that in textures. There we go. Okay, so you imported your asset in, so you can go to your modular first person controller, go to first person, and you will just drag in this guy here. And then so if you click play, make sure you have a plane as well. Oh, I'm underneath. Whoops. Oh, it's because we have double cameras, so we actually have to delete the main camera first before we can use this first person controller. So delete the main camera. And then you should be in the scene. Woohoo! And you see this particle effects. Yippee, we did it. Now that we have all our assets in, we are going to go back to our particle system and change this into a dust effect. So how we do that is we have this particle system, all these parameters here. The main ones that are usually used are already checked, so emission, shape, and then renderer. People will usually like to turn on collision as well if you want it to interact with game objects. So to make dust, we want to change how it looks like right now. So we'll go into the renderer, which is the very bottom tab. Set the render mode to mesh, and then you could set it to whatever, a cube. I like spheres. I think they look better. And I want to change this particle to, I'm just gonna do like a sprite. Change it to a sprite. Spritelet. Okay, now we have this little thing that looks like bubbles, so you can also do something where you import like textures in. I will show that later. So in the particle system, so we'll be done with the renderer for now. We have like the shape that we want the dust particles to be. So we'll go to particle system at the top and then go to the start size. And we just want to make it like super low because dust particles don't move that fast, right? Or yeah, they're also smaller. Start size, 0.05. This just makes the whole entire thing smaller. And there's also start speed, which I will also lower because it's really fast, like to 0.2. The next thing we want to do is change the shape over what area we want the particle effects system to be. So we will go into shape, it's not mission, shape. And right now it's a cone. It is a cone right now. So we actually want to change it to a box. And usually for most particle effect systems, you'll want to change it into a box. That's what we usually use. And just to make it bigger, you can change down here. There's like a scale thing. Scale it like however you want. So I'm just gonna make like a really big box. And then if it stops, like, and you can't see what's happening, that just means you're not playing the particle system. Just click play and it'll happen again. Now that you are here, I should also probably rename this as well. So you can rename up here to like dust. So now we know it's a dust system. And now we have all of these tiny dust particles. So if you load yourself in, you see that around you, there's a couple dust particles. It's hard to see. But if you look off into the distance, you can see a lot more. Right now, I don't like how they're all very uniform. They're super uniform. They're just like going up. So I want to randomize the direction. So you will do that in the shape tab. So you will go to shape, randomize direction, turn that to 1, which means that it's on. And then you can also check rotation over lifetime so that while it's moving, it's like moving around randomly. This is slightly new. You can also check noise, but it makes it like a lot. So I just like to do that for now. And then for the emission, you could go down. Oh wait, it's up here. Go up to emission and change the rate over time to something like whatever you would like. So this is how you make more particles, is you go to the emission and then you just do rate over time. I'll do like 50. And you can just like change these however you would like. I think they're actually too big, so I'm gonna make the start size a little bit smaller, actually, like 0.3, and try that out. Wow, we have little dust particles, woohoo! So this is really good if you were like in a forest or if you were somewhere where it's really dusty. That is basically how you make a dust particle system. So hopefully this wasn't too hard. These were just a couple little parameters that we changed. So now we will go on to a new particle system and we're gonna do rain. So first off, we'll go back to here, right click effects, click particle system. I'll change the particle system name to rain so that we know it's rain. B. Okay. And then like everything else, we will change the shape from a cone to a box. And just scale it on the X and the Z axis. In here, I think you also want to reset the transformation because it's on -90 right now. Just, I don't know why, but it does that for particle systems. So you'll just go up to transform, click the 3 dots and go to reset. So now it's down here. Maybe now it's to space. Whoop, where'd it go? Rain. And then I just want rain. Let's say I want rain like in front of this area right here. The first thing you want to do is go to velocity over lifetime. You'll check that. And right here, basically what we were trying to do is make it so that it's constantly moving between 2 constants, basically. So you will go to velocity over lifetime. In the linear tab, there's a drop down, and then we will click random between 2 constants. And then for the constants, we'll change our y direction to something like -25. That way it's falling down. And then like -35. Something like that. And then right now it's sort of, they're particles. So we want to change the render mode. So you'll come down here to renderer, change the billboard to stretch billboard. So the next step is to go back into the particle system and we'll just tweak some parameters here. So what we want to do first is check this 3D start size and go here and also click random between 2 constants. And we will change the X to something like 0.1 on both. 1.1. And then we can put the Y from 1 to 2 so it oscillates between the 2. And then the Z will also just be like 0.1 because we don't want to make it too bad. So now we have like actual raindrop shapes, which is really great. If you notice, like some of the movement is going sideways. So how to change that is we just make the start speed 0. And now it's just straight, flat down. We also want to go into the start lifetime And you could change it anything from like 1 to 3. Another parameter you can change here is the max particles if you want it larger. If you do want more particles, you'd always go into emission and change that. So let's change it to like something like 200. Oh, now that's like a torrent of rain, right? So let's go ahead and check what we've done so far. Wow, it's raining like a lot. Whoa. Yeah, one thing you notice is it literally just goes through the plane below us. And that is something we do not want to see. We want to actually make it so that's bouncing off the ground because it's just clipping out of nowhere. So how we do that is you will go down to collision and you'll turn that on. So right now it's with planes. You have to change it from planes to world. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to turn on dampen to 1. And it's just bouncing all over the place, so we're just turning that off. We can try like 0.001, but I don't know if it's like going to do that. Okay, and then for a lifetime loss, you can change it to something like 0.4. That way, like as it goes down, it'll like lose a little bit of its lifetime. And that is basically how you make rain. So this rain system, actually, if you were to put it through the whole entire game, it's really laggy because this is a lot of particles, right? So what people like to do is you actually just have the rain system center on the player, and while the player moves, you'll just have the rain system like just move with it, and it'll just be centered to that player. So usually that's how they do it. So that is how you make rain. Now we're gonna make snow. So back into the effects. Particle system, change it from the shape of a cone to a box. And then we'll just scale on the X and Z axis. Make sure that my transform is also reset. So now it's sideways. I'm gonna go back into here and change the scale. Do something like that. And then in our particle system right here, you can change the start speed to 0 because right now it's going to the side, right? We just want it to go down. So now the start speed is 0. And then in this area, we actually want to do a start size again between 2 constants. And these constants these are basically like how big do you want the particles to be. So maybe like somewhere between 0.05 to 0.2. This actually might be too small. I'm gonna make it larger actually, like 2. Maybe that's too big. 1? Sure, 1 looks good. So now there's some variation between the sizes of how they are. And then similar to the rain, we're gonna go back to velocity over lifetime, click that, and also click the drop down random between 2 constants, and we can change the Y to something slower. So remember back in the rain, we did like -25 to -35. That just makes it go super fast down. So now we want it to sort of float down. So it will be something maybe between -1. Oh, look, it's falling to whatever you feel like it should. -3. And I think these are there's not enough, so I will go to emission. So emission is always where you make more particles. Emission rate over time, and we can do it like something like 100. That is a lot of particles, honestly. And I notice the lifetime is sort of low, so I'm going to turn this up to like 10 so that it goes all the way down to the ground. For this one, for snow, it usually is good to fade in a particle effect and let it fade out, because if it hits anything and clips into it, then it's gonna be like really jolting, right? So you can change that by going into color over lifetime. Check that. And you'll just click on here. Now we have a gradient editor. So this just shows over lifetime, what is the color gonna be? I will make 2 extra dots just by clicking maybe like right here. and then click on the end dots and just change the alpha to 0. So now it goes from, it fades in and you can also fade out. So now it's fading in, getting very big, and then it fades out. So what I did right here is I went to collision. I changed the type to world so that it's actually interacting with the world. And I just made the bounce so that it's 0. So now it's just falling and it's just collecting on the ground. You can also change the size over lifetime. And this just makes it so that it looks better within the realm of things. So I want to do a curve. Size over lifetime, and you'll go to here. And right now the curve is, you can't really see it, and then it gets big and it dies. So what we're actually going to do is make a curve similar to this guy. So I'm just going to use a preset because I'm lazy. I'll make an extra key by right-clicking on the frame. Just add a key up here. And I'll drag the first point down so that now it's like spawning, right? Has a really nice open effect. I'll make another key back here. And I'll just make like a nice curve that sort of goes like this. So now this is looking a lot nicer in general. Okay, now that I've done that, I'm just gonna check my work really quickly. I'm in the rain area, go away. Oh wow, there's snow, and it falls down and it just leaves, which is really cool. Right now, it's still looking pretty uniform, so we're gonna add some randomness to this. How we're going to do that, I should rename this snow. How we're gonna make some randomness is we're just gonna go over to noise again, click that. Oh, that's a lot. It's very high strength, so maybe if you wanted something like a blizzard, you can go crazy like that. And that would be a blizzard, right? You'd be in the middle of a storm. But we want some nice, gentle snow, so we'll do something like 0.2. And now there's some randomness in how it flows down. That way it simulates the wind. So now there's some randomness, right? Looks like snow. For the randomness, you will go over to noise, and you'll just check it. And then if it's too much, like if it's too blurry, then you can change the strength. Either like higher or lower, depending on how you want it. There's a lot of things you can do with this. And that is basically how you make snow. So hopefully it's not too hard. So the next one we're going to do, we actually do need to download another thing. Sorry, there's so many things to download, right? You can just drag and drop. Usually the best thing is to make a folder and put all your textures in there, but we are lazy, so we are just going to drag and drop into the scene. Not into the scene, sorry, into your assets folder. So now we have this cool texture here. So what we are going to do first is create a material for this texture to go on. So I will just right click in my assets area, click create, and then go down to material. I'll name this material flame, and then this is, I think it's 16x4. For the shader, you want to make sure that the shader isn't actually like an actual material. We want it to be a texture material. So you can go into the particles, wherever that is. And then a lot of these work. Some people like to use additive. I'm just gonna use alpha blended. And then right here it says none texture. So what I am going to do is drag this into here and change it. Where is it? Texture sheet animation. This is actually where you change the tiling. So you'll keep it as grid and change it by whatever the mode is. So 16x4 is what we're using. And then for frame over time, we want to do random between two constants, and we'll change it from 0 to whatever it is, 64. And now we have basically our texture. It still doesn't look like fire, so we have to change a lot of things in the shape category. So we'll go into the shape and maybe change our angle of the cone to 5. Change the radius to 0.1. If we go back into our regular particle system, we can put the start size to something like 2.5, make it larger. And the start speed, we will lower it because it's really fast. And then I want to change the start lifetime as well to something lower because it's really high. Actually, might even want to make it lower speed. Oh, we can also change the start speed to 0, and it will just be a graphic that should follow the player, I hope. So if you change the start speed to 0 instead of whatever it was at, or if you like it more higher, you can do that. I'm gonna keep it to 0. It does look a little bit stagnant, so I might want to change the start speed again. Maybe something to like 0.1, 0.2, something really low. You can also change the color over lifetime. And I want it to fade out at the end, actually. So I will go alpha, fade out. Yep, so that's basically how you make an animation with sprites. You could do something similar with smoke. We'll cover this really fast. It's pretty simple. You can either do it with a sprite like how we did before, and you can also blend it. So I have my particle system right here. I will change the color actually to something that a smoke color would be, something dark. And it's really small, so I will go to the start size, bring it up a little bit higher, maybe change the speed as well to something faster. I'm gonna change the lifetime to something lower. It's gonna work. And there's only a couple particles, so I will add a couple more. Oh, that's a lot of smoke. 50? Something like 50. And right now, it's like really wide. I want to make something more like a chimney smoke. So I will go back into my shape and change the angle to something tinier. You could change whatever parameters you want. Something like that. For this, you can probably also add a light and just position it wherever you want. So I just put it on the chimney. It is below the chimney actually, so I'll bring it higher. And then for the fire, I'll put it in front of my fireplace, or in it if I can. Just put it behind it, something like that. And then this particle system for the fire is looking a bit dark, so I'm actually going to add a light to just boost how it looks. So I will put a point light just in there. I'll just put it in my fire so that it has somewhere to go. And I'm gonna change the color to a color that would be in the fireplace, like that. And now I have a fireplace, and it glows. There's definitely a lot of different ways to do the fire. This is just one of them with the sprite animations, just in case you guys want to do 2D things. So that is basically it for the particle system. Woohoo! So one more thing I want to show you guys is the visual effects graph. So in my package manager, in the Unity registry, there is something called a visual effects graph. I will install that. Okay, so this is actually a really cool system. As I said before, it runs on GPU. So I will just show some of the VFX systems that they have. So you see that there's like a couple things that look like tornadoes. You can also find this here. If you go to visual effects, you can create a visual effect. That will show up right there. There are some samples on here, so I will show those really quickly. So what we have is a flame that looks amazing. Look at that guy. So how is this made? It's made using this node graph. So if you want to look at the node graph, you can just double click on the samples and I'll show you how to do it. So in this system, you basically have to search for all your parameters. Nothing, it's not like the particle system where everything is out here. So you have like your render area. Basically, you initialize it. It'll update using frames. And then this is your renderer. And then if you want anything to show up on the side, like right here, you would have to put this in this tab right here. So usually in regular visual effects systems, there's no tabs in here. You would have to add those yourself in the Flames one. So the nice thing is it's really modular. This system you can do a lot with. If you're interested, you can look at the samples that they have. Just check out what they did. There's usually notes as well, like how did they do this? Oh my gosh, okay. Yeah, so if you're interested in this, really interesting shader area, so you can check that out. I think that is it.